One word. For 5 months, everybody in this country has called what happened to Nancy Guthrie a kidnapping. The news called it a kidnapping. The FBI called it a kidnapping. The sheriff called it a kidnapping. The family called it a kidnapping. Even I called it a kidnapping. Then in the last 48 hours, one word showed up in the reporting, and that word quietly rewrote the entire case. Unintentional. That is the word. Unintentional. According to fresh reporting from July 21st and July 22nd, 2026, sources close to the case say a ransom note connected to Nancy Guthrie describes her death as unintentional, and it says she was buried with nature. Now stop. Let those two lines land. Buried with nature. Unintentional. If those two things are real, if that note is real, if those words in that order are real, then this was never a kidnapping. Not the kind we thought, not the kind we have been talking about for 5 months. Something else happened in that house. And whoever wrote that note knows exactly what. Stay with me, because in the next few minutes, I am going to walk you through why one word can change a whole case. I'm going to show you the Apple Watch detail that backs it up. I'm going to show you the Scottsdale connection nobody is talking about. And I am going to show you why the FBI's silence around this specific note might be the loudest thing they have ever done. Let me start with what the note says, because that is the piece we have to look at first. Reporting from The Hill and from News Nation reporter Brian Enton describes a note in this case. The note claims Nancy Guthrie is dead. It claims her death was unintentional. It claims she was buried with nature. Those are the pieces we have. Now understand something. Kidnappers write ransom notes to get money. They keep the victim alive because the victim is the product. The victim is the leverage. No kidnapper who wants money kills the person and then writes a note about it. That is not how it works. A note that says the victim is dead, but the death was unintentional. And by the way, here is where she is. That is not a ransom note. That is a confession. That is somebody who knows they crossed a line and is trying to walk it back. That is somebody trying to explain. That is somebody trying to say, I did not mean for this to happen. Read that framing back to me. I did not mean for this to happen. That is not a criminal negotiating. That is a criminal apologizing. And that changes what this crime was. If death was unintentional, then whoever went into Nancy Guthrie's house on the morning of February 1st, 2026, did not go there to kill her. They went there for something else. Money, a specific item, information, something. And Nancy either got in the way or something went wrong, or the plan broke down. And in the chaos of whatever went wrong, she died. That is a completely different crime than a kidnapping for ransom. That is a robbery gone wrong, or a home invasion gone wrong, or something else gone wrong. And that means the whole theory of this case, the whole framework the public has been working under for 5 months, is built on the wrong idea. Now let me hit you with the second piece. Because on its own, the word unintentional is just a word, but it is paired with something else in the last 48 hours. And this pairing is what makes me actually stop and pay attention. The Apple Watch. There has been reporting throughout this case about an Apple Watch, a white band, Nancy's Apple Watch. According to sources cited in outlets like News Nation, someone with knowledge of this case knew a very specific detail about that Apple Watch. They knew where on the bedroom floor it was sitting when Nancy went missing. That is a detail that was not released to the public. That is a detail that only the family and the police had. And it is not a general detail. It is not the Apple Watch was in her room. It is the Apple Watch was on this exact spot on the floor. Now think about who could know that. Somebody would have to have been in that bedroom, physically, standing there, looking at the floor, seeing the watch, remembering the placement. A random stranger casing the house from the outside does not know that detail. A random criminal who picked the house at random does not know that detail. Someone who had never been inside Nancy Guthrie's bedroom does not know that detail. The only people who know that detail are people who were in that room. Either they are people who lived there, or they are people who were let in, or they are people who broke in and stood right there. And here is the thing. If the person who wrote the note has that detail, then the person who wrote the note either was in the house on the night of the crime, or was in the house before the crime scoping it out, or has information from someone who was. That is inside knowledge. That is not a stranger. That is not a drifter. That is not a random burglar. That is somebody who was close enough to see the floor of Nancy Guthrie's bedroom. Pair that with the word unintentional, and now you have a picture. Somebody who knew the house, somebody who knew where things were, somebody who came in for a reason, somebody whose plan broke down, and somebody who is now trying to say through a note, I did not mean for it to end this way. Now, I want to introduce you to a third piece because there is a theory that has been floating around this case that just got stronger with these two new details. Retired FBI agent Jennifer Coffindaffer has been talking publicly about a home invasion that happened in Scottsdale, Arizona, in the hours just before Nancy Guthrie vanished. In that Scottsdale case, two teenagers broke into a home. They believed there was $66 million in cryptocurrency inside. They were wrong. They found nothing that big. They ran. Now think about that timeline. Hours before Nancy Guthrie is taken. Same state, same rough time window, a crew of young criminals looking for a huge crypto payday, and they hit the wrong house. Coffindaffer's theory. And I want you to hear this out. Her theory is that Nancy Guthrie's house might have been the next name on their list. That there was a target list of homes where these crews believed serious money was sitting, and that after Scottsdale went bust, they moved on to the next target, which happened to be Nancy Guthrie. Now, I am not telling you that is proven. I am not telling you that is confirmed. That is a theory from a retired FBI agent. But look how well that theory fits the two new pieces we just talked about. If a crew went into Nancy's house looking for money and they thought there was serious money inside, they did not go in to kidnap her, they went in for the money. If something went wrong, if Nancy woke up, if she saw them, if she resisted, or if she had a medical event because of the fear, any of that could turn the whole thing sideways in a second. And now they have a body they did not plan for. And now they have a note to write. Death was unintentional. Read that again. In the context of a robbery crew that did not plan to hurt anyone. That is exactly the sentence they would write. It is not a lie they would tell. It is what actually happened from their point of view. And that changes what the FBI is looking for. That changes what the sheriff is looking for. That changes what the public should be looking for. This is not a lone predator who took an older woman to hurt her. This might be a crew that hit the wrong house, a crew that broke into more than one home in Arizona that week, a crew that maybe knew someone connected to Nancy or her home, a crew that knew the layout well enough to know an Apple Watch was on a specific spot on the bedroom floor. Now, I want to talk about the phrase buried with nature, because a lot of people are treating that phrase like it is poetry, like it is a criminal being flowery, like it is a killer being dramatic. I do not think it is. I think it is a location. Forensic linguists, the people who study the language criminals use, will tell you that most of the time when a phrase looks weird, it is not because the person is being artistic. It is because they are describing something real in the only way they know how. Buried with nature is not a metaphor. It is a hint. It is a person saying she is in a natural place, not a building, not a city, not a dumpster, not a landfill, somewhere with trees, somewhere with dirt, somewhere in the wild. If that is what it means, then Nancy Guthrie is somewhere in the desert or somewhere in a forested area or somewhere in a canyon. Not somewhere in a car trunk, not somewhere in a storage unit, buried in nature. That narrows a search zone. That gives searchers a place to look. That is why the phrase matters. Because if it is real, it is not a taunt. It is a road sign. Now, here is the piece that keeps me up at night. And I want to be really careful how I say this. The FBI has confirmed that 3 notes in this case are fakes. They said that publicly. They took the time to say it. They pushed back against those 3 notes. They wanted the public to know those notes were not real. They have not done that with this note, the buried with nature note, the unintentional note. They have not confirmed it. They have not denied it. They have not called it a fake. They have not called it real. They have just been silent. You have to ask yourself, why did they clear the air about 3 other notes, but not this one? There are only 2 reasons a federal agency stays silent about a piece of evidence like that. Either they are still working it, they are running it, they are treating it as possibly real, and they do not want to tip anyone off. Or they are protecting the family from having to hear that this note has details in it that only the killer could know. Either way, silence around this note is not neutral. Silence around this note is a signal. And that signal is that this note is different from the 3 fakes. This note is on somebody's desk. Somebody is taking it seriously. That is why the word unintentional is not just a word. It is a fulcrum. It is a hinge. If it is real, this whole case turns on it. Here is where the case goes from here. There are 2 paths. Path 1. This note gets confirmed as another fake. The FBI comes out and says it. The story fades. The theory dies. We go back to thinking this was a kidnapping, and we keep waiting for a break somewhere else. Path 2. This note gets confirmed as real, or at least treated as real inside the file, and then everything changes. Then the search moves to natural areas, then the suspect list moves to people with inside knowledge of Nancy's home. Then the timeline moves to overlap with the Scottsdale crypto job. Then this whole case turns into something totally different than what we thought it was for 5 months. I do not know which path this case is on tonight, but I know that if I were on the sheriff's team, I would be operating like path 2 is possible. Because you cannot ignore a note that has both a location and a motive built into it. You have to work it, just in case. Let me leave you with one thought, because I know a lot of you have been following this case since day one. And I know a lot of you have been hoping every time a new detail drops that it is going to be the one that brings Nancy home. If the word unintentional is real, Nancy is not coming home. Not the way the family wanted. And that is a hard thing to sit with. That is a hard thing to write into a video. That is a hard thing to tell you. But if it is real, it also means she can still be found. Buried with nature is a place. Places can be searched. Places can be walked. Dogs can be sent out. Drones can be sent up. Searchers can walk the desert. Searchers can walk the woods. Because if that phrase is real, Nancy is in one of those places right now. And she is waiting to be brought home. And that is what she deserves. Not to stay in the dark. Not to stay a mystery. To be found. To be brought back to the people who loved her. To be laid to rest with the ceremony a mother deserves. So watch the FBI. Watch what they say next about that note. If they call it a fake, we go one direction. If they stay silent, we stay in the dark. And if they ever confirm it, everything changes overnight. One word, unintentional. That is the fulcrum. That is the hinge. That is the whole case now. Tell me what you think in the comments. Do you think the note is real? Do you think buried with nature is a location? Do you think Coffindaffer's Scottsdale theory holds up? Or do you think this is just another fake note that will fall apart next week? I want to hear you. I will keep watching. I will keep listening. And I will bring you the next piece the moment it lands. Take care of each other. Say a prayer for the Guthrie family tonight, and I will see you in the next one.